Good morning, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. And so today we'll talk about two paragraphs that basically mostly repeat themselves, but just the difference between what to do when you're feeling during davening that you need to go to the bathroom, or how to make sure before you even start praying or studying Torah. That's the second paragraph, or second section is what to do about going to the bathroom before starting such activities. That way, you don't have to be in a tight spot. So the Chachamim, our sages, teach that one who needs to relieve himself, be it to urinate or to defecate, is prohibited from praying. That's in the Gemara and Brachos, since the need to relieve himself is likely to disrupt his kavanah, his intention. In addition, it is not proper to come to pray before God when one's body is made repulsive by the excrement inside him. I know these are very bad words, but basically, it's just about making sure that you know in advance what's about to happen. Even if he is uncertain as to whether or not he needs to relieve himself, it is proper that he try before beginning to pray. And thank God today in every single synagogue in the world, there's indoor plumbing and bathrooms. So it's not as a problem as it was during the time of the Gemara. In the time of the Gemara, you had outhouses, and the synagogue didn't have its own outhouse, so you had to basically make sure that before you even left the house to shul, to check if you need to go to the bathroom or not. And also, their bodies were a lot more regulated than today. Their schedule and their routine were very very straightforward. In the morning they would wash up and go to, I think just number one, and in the evening after dinner, everybody would go to the outhouse, and then they would lock the door from the inside, and that was it for the night. Nobody walked around. I'll just share a story of how I know that this is true. There was a rabbi who had a overnight guest, and he didn't know this man, so he, offered him a place to sleep. But because he was suspicious that he might be up to no good, he removed the ladder in the house. In the house, they basically slept in a above like loft, or like a second floor, but it wasn't. There were no stairs. It was a ladder. So he removed it because he was worried about the person being a thief. And of course, the guy got up at night not knowing that there's no ladder and fell and broke his legs. So he started screaming at the rabbi, is this how you try? Is this how you treat your guests? And he said, obviously I knew what you're up to, because you got up when everybody else was sleeping. So we know that their routine was very simple. They only went to the bathroom, before going to sleep or when they woke up in the morning. So it just puts things a little bit more in context. In addition, it is not proper to come to pray before Hashem when one's body is sorry. The Chachamim over here, by where it says 15a. Chachamim support their statement with the verse from Amos, which we already quoted when we talked about wearing a belt. Israel, prepare to meet your God. Israel. It is also written, and this verse was not quoted about the belt, in Ecclesiastes, the book of Kohelet, guard your foot when you go to the house of God, meaning make sure you do not need to go to the relieve yourself at the time that you are standing to pray. There are two levels of need. One, a need so pressing that it is impossible to wait even the amount of time it takes to walk a parsa, which is approximately 72 minutes, or 3.5 miles. And two, a need to relieve oneself, but which can be controlled for longer than 72 minutes. If a person begins to recite the Amidah when he cannot control his need to defecate for 72 minutes, his prayer is considered an abomination. The word in Hebrew is toeva, and he does not fulfill his obligation. Instead, he must go back and repeat his prayer after he relieves himself. However, if he recited the Amidah when he cannot control his need to urinate for 72 minutes, although it is clear that he did not act in accordance with the law, the Achronim, the later poskim, are divided as to whether or not his prayer is considered an abomination, due to the fact that it is not in our power to settle this dispute, because all the ones that he quotes are very strong Achronim, There is no obligation to repeat the prayer, but it is good to go back and pray a tefillat nedava, a voluntary prayer, which we already discussed is allowed to do always. If a person is able to control himself for 72 minutes and he recites the Amidah, his prayer is considered valid because his needs to relieve himself is not so urgent. In any case, the chatchila, even a person who can wait 72 minutes is prohibited from praying. Even if he will miss praying in a minyan because of this, he must relieve himself and pray individually. If, however, before he relieves himself, the time to pray will pass, so what's called Sof Zman Amidah, which is the end of the fourth hour of the day, not 10 o'clock, but fourth halachic hour. We'll discuss that further later. He should pray immediately so that he will not miss praying altogether. And this is somebody who wakes up very late because the time for the Shema is the third hour, and that we learn that from the way that princes used to wake up late. So that would be, I think, around 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:15. And so Amida is 11 or 11:15. And so who wakes up at that late in the day anyway? But that's what they're talking about here. The estimation of a person's ability to control himself can only be determined by the person himself. There's no doctor that you can ask how pressing it is. If he thought before the prayer service that he could wait 72 minutes, but after beginning to pray he was proven mistaken, his prayer is still considered valid, since at the time he started to pray he believed he could contain his need, and that's all about other things. We repeat the Amida, what's called Chazarat Hashatz, even if there was one person who was still praying when the last person for the minyan came in. So that's why this is important to remember. It's just a rule in general that if you thought that you could, then it's considered valid. If he has doubts to whether or not he needs to relieve himself, or if his need is very slight, as we learned the he should relieve himself before even going to shul, or when he gets to shul to use the shul's bathroom. And so, just to supplement that, this whole paragraph basically talks about making sure before. So, just as one who needs to relieve himself and cannot wait 72 minutes is prohibited from reciting the Amida, so too he is prohibited from reciting brachos, saying the Shema, and learning Torah, for it is not proper to engage in matters of sanctity when one's body is offensive. However, there's a significant difference between the Amida and other matters of sanctity. In the Amida, we resemble people standing in front of the king. If one does not pray in the proper manner, he disgraces the respect of heaven, and his prayer is an abomination. However, at the end here, while saying them, one is not considered to be standing before the king. That's the brachos and Shema and learning Torah. Hence, with the Evid, if he recites brachot Shema, and even if he's not able to control his need for 72 minutes, he fulfills his obligation. And we'll skip a little bit and conclude this idea about learning Torah and especially teaching Torah. So a person who starts to learn when he does not need to relieve himself, but in the course of learning feels a need. There's Rav Aaron Lichtenstein used to give 3-hour shiurim on Shabbat afternoon. And there were very few people that stayed for the whole 3 hours without getting up even once. So, and he knew that but he never left the podium. So for 3 hours straight, he would give a shiur, usually on Rambam, Shabbat afternoon. So to the point where he can no longer wait 72 minutes, should the Chavtila go and relieve himself. If he is in the middle of a subject of study, some say that he may continue to learn until he finishes that subject, and whereas others say that he should go relieve himself immediately. And it's just again about the personality, about how important your learning is for you. You don't want to distract yourself. You wouldn't distract yourself to go and answer the phone. So also you shouldn't probably go to the bathroom. And last but not least, if he is teaching Torah, he should finish his class and then relieve himself. For human dignity, Kavod Briot is so great that it overrides the rabbinic prohibition of do not abominate oneself. So the idea is basically that if you're teaching and you suddenly go somewhere else, then you're disrespecting the people who came to your class. And I think it's very appropriate that we finish this subject on the eve of Parshat Yitro, because Yitro asked Moses, what is he doing? And guess what? Moses said, I'm teaching Torah. and teaching the law and teaching all the questions that answering all the questions that people may have. So if he was there from morning until evening, I am 100% sure that he did not go to relieve himself during that whole time. So I think it's an amazing example. I don't think it's humanly possible for me, but maybe somebody else. So we'll end with that, and Shabbat Shalom.